Good morning. Welcome to Creative Mornings. My name is Ben Terry, and I'm the host of Creative Mornings here in Louisville. And you're probably thinking, whoa, this is a really different format than what we've been doing the past couple of months. And you're right, it is. We have switched up this month mainly because we're doing our first ever panel. And we thought the most helpful and beneficial way for you to be able to know who the panelists are and to follow their conversation is by hosting a Zoom webinar versus our traditional Zoom meeting. So that's why you're probably just seeing me today. But don't worry, there's still hundreds of people who are tuning in right now. And feel free to drop in the chat your name, your location, or maybe an emoji that kind of expresses how you're feeling this morning. But I just want to first start off by welcoming you to Creative Mornings. We are so excited that you are here. It is a crazy time right now in our world. And we're so thankful that you've been able to take an hour today just to come and virtually gather with us. And hopefully we can inspire and challenge each other to be better. Because that's what Creative Mornings is about. We believe everyone is creative and everyone is welcome to these events. And we hope that it will be a source of inspiration and a source of a place that you feel creatively challenged to go out and do your work. And when we think about creativity and creatives, we really believe everyone is creative. So no matter what way in which you express that creativity, you in and of itself are creative. And whether that's social work or working in spreadsheets, or whether you're a photographer or a coder, you're leveraging creativity to solve a lot of the problems. And so each month, we've been doing this for 6 years, but only in the last couple of months, we've been doing this virtually, is by bringing the community together and try to inspire and challenge you all. So thanks so much for being here today. Creative Mornings is an international global movement, and we're super excited to be part of it here in Louisville. And some of the way in which we make this global Creative Mornings movement happen is we have these awesome global sponsors like MailChimp. If you're not familiar with MailChimp, they're an awesome email marketing service, especially for small businesses. It's a great way to be able to email your clients and customers and to leverage their tools. And they also have really cool products that you might want to be able to check out. Get my clicker here to work. Tim, if you could hit the next slide. They have this thing called Courier. And Courier is a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for that MailChimp is sending out that basically gives you best tips and practices for your business. So if that sounds interesting to you, head down to the couriermedia.co /weekly. So big shout out to MailChimp for making that happen. So we hit my slide. And then WordPress.com. We're super pumped for WordPress. They're an awesome website builder organization that's been supporting Creative Mornings. And they have a website called Own Your Content. It's the biggest struggle for creatives as we create this amazing work, but we have to figure out how to license it, how to protect it, how to publish it out into the world. And WordPress.com has a really helpful blog and resource in partnership with Creative Mornings that helps you understand how to better own your content. So check that out on WordPress.com. So shout out to them. Got to give out all the thank yous this morning. And we have our friends at Basecamp. Basecamp is one of our newest global partners. You've probably seen them recently in the news, not for their project management app, which has been around for years, but probably for their new email. It's called Hey. I mean, who doesn't want an email account that says hey.com? So if you want to try it out, you can go and sign up for a new account at hey.com. And it's a free way for you to be able to have a new email address. It's kind of like when you first wanted to get a Gmail, but you had to sign up for like bterry211967850 @gmail.com. Well, here's your chance to get a shorter email address. So if that's interesting to you, head over to hey.com and sign up for a new email by Basecamp. So shout out to Basecamp for sponsoring us as well. That was a mouthful to try to get all of that out this early in the morning. But you hit my next slide for me. Creative Mornings, we're back. That was the global side of things. And I wanted to draw your attention to some local stuff that's happening here in our Creative Mornings chapter. Tomorrow, actually, we have Ashley from the Louisville Ballet is actually leading a virtual field trip. I think there's 500 people registered. And she's going to be teaching the basics of ballet. So even if you don't know how to do ballet or you just want to be better at dancing in some form, You can sign up for that field trip over at creativemornings.com/field trips. And you can sign up for Ashley of the Louisville Ballet's field trip. So that'd be really awesome. We're super excited that she's doing that. And if you're interested, go sign up for that field trip. And as I move right along, it brings us to our theme this month. We actually chose this theme, insecure. And it's not because we think any of you are insecure or that Louisville is insecure, but it's that desire that we all want to be more confident in our creativity. We want to be able to step into challenges and problems feeling more confident and secure in who we are as a person. And insecurity is something that always lives deep down inside of us that tells us lies that we're not good enough or we're not great or we can't do those things. And so we wanted to kind of tackle that topic this month. And so all over the world, different Creative Mornings chapters are exploring this theme of insecure. And what's really cool is we have our friend Rachel Sinclair, who's been coming to Creative Mornings since the beginning, actually designed and illustrated the theme this month. So huge shout out to Rachel. She does some amazing design work. You've probably seen it around before, but we're super thankful for you for being part of this community, but then also illustrating our theme this month. So thanks, Rachel, for being part of that. Okay, woo, moving right along. Now to our local sponsors who actually help fund and make this happen. We want to give a big shout out to the Community Foundation of Louisville. They have a new campaign that's going to be starting called their Give for Good Louisville. And that's going to be on September 17th. And this is a day to support local nonprofits who have been uplifting our city over these past few months. So if you know a nonprofit, this is a great place to go register them. And we encourage you to register at giveforgoodlouisville.org by June 30th. And this will be a way for other people to be able to donate and give to those nonprofits here in the city. So thanks Community Foundation for sponsoring us, but then also sponsoring so many other great initiatives in the city. And then our last sponsor that we have here locally is Render Capital. And Render Capital is trying to increase access to capital for entrepreneurs and small businesses in the area. They've actually partnered with a tech company based in San Francisco called WeFunder. And it's like Kickstarter, except instead of getting a gift in return, you can actually invest in the company. And so WeFunder is a crowdsource investing platform where you can invest in small businesses within your area. And Render Capital is actually matching the dollars that are invested on the WeFunder platform to Louisville-based startups and businesses. So if you're a startup and business that needs to raise some money and crowd equity sounds interesting to you, Render Capital right now through the WeFunder platform is actually helping support you and give more money to you through that way. So check out render.capital/WeFunder to find out more. All right. That is all the thank yous and the shout outs for all the amazing people that make this happen every month. I'm super stoked for this month's event. As we were planning and thinking, we were seeing everything that was kind of happening in the world and even in our own city. It's just really sad and enraging to see what's happening. And photographers are some of the ones who are on the front lines documenting these events that are unfolding within our cities. And they're capturing these stories. And it's a really powerful medium for us to process and to visualize what's happening day in and day out. And so I thought it would be really interesting for us this month to host a panel conversation with 5 different photographers based in 5 different cities. And we're going to bring them on here in a few minutes. But I'm super stoked to have Vanessa Charlotte based in St. Louis. We have Devin Allen, who's based in West Baltimore. John Cherry, who is based here in Louisville, Kentucky. Chris Facey in New York City. And Alyssa Pointer in Atlanta. And we've featured all of these people on our Instagram this week. And they're all amazing photographers who have been featured on so many different publications and are creating amazing work and going to places that a lot of people don't want to go to capture the images and the stories of these communities. And so I'm super thankful for them. And so Tim, if you would, let's go ahead and start inviting our panelists onto, let's see if you can find them in there real quick. So as Tim's finding them, feel free, there's a Q&A section within the webinar where you can provide questions into the chat area. And if you have a question for our panelists, feel free to drop it in there or in the chat side, and our team will be able to bring those questions up with the group. Um, and we'll have a good conversation. So what's it, 9:11? So we're doing great on time. I feel like I've already talked for like 30 minutes, so I'm looking forward to having some other people talk besides me. Uh, and then what we'll actually do as Tim adds on Vanessa is we're actually going to kick it off by first having each of the panelists kind of go through. They've each selected an image that they've taken recently of the protests happening within their cities and communities. And so they've selected one, and I've asked them to actually kind of spend 5 minutes going through each of one of their images, kind of providing more context, the story behind it, and why they've kind of selected it. So Alyssa, Chris, Vanessa, Devin, and John, I know you can't see anyone, but I, on their behalf, am super excited and stoked that you all are here. That was a tongue twister for me. But to kick it off, Tim, I want to go ahead and kick it over to John, who's based here in Louisville. If you want to share his image, and then John, if you would, feel free to just take a few moments and give us some more context around the image that you've kind of shot and selected, and kind of what you're seeing and experiencing here in Louisville as you've been documenting the protests. And so Tim's going to share that, and I'll hand it over to you, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, killer introduction. That was a lot of talking you had to do. You blew right by it. This photo was really impactful to me. The particular day this happened was Monday, June 15th. It was a day of civil unrest. It was the first day that police used tear gas and the sound weapon, pepper bullets again on protesters after those first initial days of unrest. And whenever I arrived on the scene at the park at 6th and Jefferson, where the protest camp is set up, the movement's camp is set up, we got a call that there was somebody who was hit by a semi just 3 blocks away on 9th Street. So my friend, who is a medic, sprinted down, and we were buddies together, so I sprinted down with him. And if you notice, the gentleman on the right, his left leg is taped up. And the semi that hit him is actually the one on the right. You can see the driver is kind of looking down with this kind of grimace look through the rearview mirror. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, but these two gentlemen are actually brothers. The one on the left is one of the protest leaders, and his brother has been kind of out of commission ever since all this happened. And you see the children off to the left kind of staring off. And it was a bizarre situation because usually whenever you show up and to take photos, it's not impending danger. As soon as you get there, you usually get to watch the water heat up, but this was a boiling pot as soon as we arrived. So I think it's kind of a testament to how much within these like community uprisings that we're having, that we're helping each other out more than harming each other. And it's really kind of outside forces are the ones that are the most harmful.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I have so many other follow-up questions, but I'm going to hold those and we'll let the rest of the panelists kind of go through their image. But thanks for sharing that for us, John. The next image that we're going to show is actually from Alyssa Pointer down in Atlanta. So Alyssa, if you want to jump in and go ahead and start sharing a little bit about this image.
Sure. So can you hear me? Just double checking.
Yeah, you sound great.
Perfect. So I am a staff photojournalist at the paper in Atlanta, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And this photo was taken on day 3 of protests in Atlanta. And so I photographed the first day of protests, and it started on a Friday, and I was technically off Saturday and Sunday, but I let my editors know I can come in if they needed me. So I took Saturday off and came back in on Sunday. And so when I got there, there was a group that was at Centennial Olympic Park, which was kind of this was just the area where people were gathering, because 2 days before there was the destroying of police cars and the burning of police cars. And so this group had gathered there. And as I was there, there was another group that had came, and they were kind of just 2 groups that were coming together. But then this one group decided to walk off. And I noticed that 2 other police officers decided they were going to walk with the group. So this group walked from one part of Atlanta, and they took a 2.5-mile trek peacefully through the city. They stopped at a bridge, sat down, they had these words of encouragement. There was about 100, 150 people on a bridge. they shut down traffic, just talking about how they could peacefully protest in the city. And then after that, they marched back to Centennial Olympic Park. On their way back from the march, I, was very tired. I'm carrying these two big cameras on my sides. I've got a book bag and a computer in it, and I'm trying to make compelling images, but also I'm trying to breathe because I've got one of these paint masks on. So as we're walking back, I take this picture of this young lady, and my initial thought was I didn't see the sign. I took this picture because I was looking at the richness of her skin tone, because she's a darker skinned individual. And I also was thinking of the fact that in a lot of social and racial justice movements, Black women are the ones that are leading the marches, leading the conversations. And so when I saw her skin tone, I also was thinking darker skinned women are also the most mistreated because of their skin tone. So when I took this image, I did not read the sign, but as I'm going back and sending images in on deadline, I see the sign, and the sign says, "I'm only being peaceful out of respect for Keisha." And Keisha is the name of Atlanta's mayor. And so day before, the mayor was saying, you guys don't mess up the city. Atlanta has this legacy of the civil rights movement and peaceful marches and peaceful protests. So I thought it was compelling that this young Black woman was saying to another Black woman, "I hear you. I know you don't want me to be disrespectful, and I won't be, but I'm still letting you know I'm angry. And so I'm going to be out here with my sign, and I'm going to be out here letting people know how I feel." And so we continued our march back. So that was a 5-mile march for me. That was unplanned, but I think that I got some really great images out of it. And I just really appreciated her being there and her being involved in the march.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Alyssa, for sharing that. It's kind of brings the image so much more to life, kind of knowing that backstory and a little bit more context. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Next up, I'm going to move over to Devin Allen. He's based in West Baltimore, and he selected this image, which is also recently featured on the Time magazine. And so, Devin, if you want to, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off from here.
Yes, my name is Devin Allen. I'm based in Baltimore. I've been documenting protests since the death of Mike Brown here in Baltimore. And a lot of people don't know that Baltimore, anytime we lose anyone, we're always on protesting. We don't miss a beat. So I've been out for 6 years now. And as I became the third amateur photographer back in 2015 after the death of Freddie Gray. And Baltimore is pretty small. So me and Freddie Gray actually had mutual friends, and I built a platform from that. And so this time around, with George Floyd, Tony, and Breonna, countless others, as I've grown, is not so much an activist, but a concerned citizen. And my platform is respected by organizers and activists in my community. I try to use my platform to speak in spaces where, as a straight Black man, most people won't speak. And this is a Black Trans Lives Matter march held in Baltimore. And I thought, when I found out about the march, it kind of saddened me that they have to have, that community has to have their own march. And, I don't know if a lot of you remember the shooting in Orlando, where LGBTQ nightclub was shot up. And I had some friends reach out to me and ask me to document it because they were doing a candlelight visual. And being an artist, where I'm from the hood, Baltimore is very still segregated. We still have pockets, and there's a lot of redlining going on here. So as an artist, I hang with so many different types of people from different walks of life. And once again, my lens is respected. So when I went to the Orlando candlelight, I never knew what my friends, from the LGBTQ community actually went through. I have gay, lesbian, trans, non-binary friends. And knowing what they go through just for being who they are kind of broke my heart. And I told myself moving forward that my lens would speak for everyone, and so when they held their march and they feel like they're left out of conversation, that's something that I myself, as a straight Black man, knowing how things are, I just had to speak to it. I wanted to make sure that I brought that same energy that I bring to every protest, from shooting things from Freddie Gray to Sandra Bland to Tamir to Eric Gardner to, you know, Kareem Gaines or Tyrone West, and the names go on. So I wanted to show up and make sure I give them my full support. And this image was selected for the cover Time magazine. It's my second Time magazine cover, which is, I think it's big for that community. And, you know, and I just wanted to make sure that they can be heard. You know, I feel like, you know, growing up in the hood from the home of the wire, I never had a voice, but I found mine, you know, with the blessings of the death of Freddie Gray, you know, not so much blessings, but he blessed me with a voice, you know, after he passed. So I wanted to make sure that anything that I do with my work, that I'm giving voice to everyone else.
Thanks, Devin. I know you've been so consistent over the past 6 years following the protests and the movement, and it's just been beautiful to see how your work has evolved and how you have grown as a photographer over time as well too. And I appreciate you kind of sharing the story and then your passion for photography as well. So thanks for that. Next up, we have Chris Facey, who's actually based in New York City. Chris, I'll let you share a little bit more about this image.
No problem, no problem. First and foremost, thank you for having me. And I'm extremely grateful to be able to share this space with everyone here. So thank you for putting me in that position. As far as this image goes, this was made still in the beginning when the protest was still at high energy. This was in Times Square out here in New York City. When I made this image, I felt how that gentleman felt. You know, I call this image the pushback. And it just takes one person to kind of start this whole revolution, to start this movement. Unfortunately, you know, it had to come at the death of some great individuals, but this is where we at with it today. So this image actually, this whole crowd of police were actually getting ready to run down a whole crowd. I was included in that crowd. They were getting ready to just run down on. This gentleman just jumped out in the front there and just started pushing them back. And that spoke volumes to me, that us as Black people, we're tired and we're not just gonna just keep taking whatever you dish out. Even with this image, I was also just, you know, kind of confused on how I was gonna present these images, because I'm very concerned about the final output of these images, like what kind of result they'll have in the world. And I felt that this was strong for all my Black brothers and sisters to show that we're tired, we're not taking this anymore, we're fighting back. And I don't care how many of you there are, we're just gonna keep doing that. You know, but to be in this scene was also a little bit dangerous, because like I said, there was also another crowd of police officers just pushing us and elbowing people. I done had to ice a few parts of my body already, but that one, that spoke to me. That's the image that I chose to share, because that's how I feel. That's how I feel right now. That's how I feel today. And I feel like that's how I'm gonna feel tomorrow. Like, just keep fighting, just keep pushing back.
Thanks, Chris, for sharing that. And then our last one is Vanessa Charlotte from St. Louis. Vanessa, share some more information about this image you've selected.
Okay, so this image is actually from, oh, and hey, everybody. This image is from May 30th, when the protests first started in St. Louis. And just to give a backdrop, St. Louis is also the city, specifically Ferguson, where Mike Brown was killed. So St. Louis already has this undertone of tension and specifically racial tension in the city and throughout the city. So I was following this protest. It literally, I live in downtown St. Louis. It literally happened right outside of my house. And at every major intersection, the protesters would stop and occupy the space. And it was a way to signify that, you know, like, we're here, essentially. And there was something about this woman that captured my attention. She was very stoic in her expression. She was very, you can tell, like, she was very determined. And, you know, one of my favorite writers is James Baldwin. And James Baldwin eloquently states, to be Black or to be a Negro in America is to be in a constant state of rage, right? And so she ends up sitting at this intersection, and comparable to what Alyssa was saying earlier, definitely Black women are the backbone of every movement. when it comes to justice and peace and equality in this country. But they're also the most underrated, right? And quite often, when Black women are brutalized and killed at the hands of officers, the movement is not as big as it is for their male counterparts that experience that. So seeing this woman, she sits Indian style in the middle of a major intersection in downtown St. Louis. And it was just like a quick second. I saw her, I had to have this image. And so I photographed her, but I didn't realize how powerful the image would turn out to be. I just knew that I was drawn to her. This woman essentially expressed everything that I could not express at the time. I think, quite honestly, when you're a Black photographer and you're documenting your community, it's a deeply emotional experience because you're looking at the protesters and they're an extension of who you are. But right now you're behind the lens, and oftentimes, to be transparent, I had to put my camera down and put my fist up just because I understood deeply what was transpiring. So that's essentially that image. And there's so many women here in St. Louis like her, but she is the one that I captured.
That's beautiful. Thanks so much, Vanessa, for sharing that. I appreciate you all. We can go ahead and take the images off, Tim. I appreciate you all kind of sharing that. It gives us a lot of context for everyone's kind of community and what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. As we've kind of heard through conversations, and I think Nipsey said, like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And Devin, I feel like you have demonstrated that really well in Baltimore for how long you've been documenting this. I would love, maybe Alyssa, if you could start off, like, how are you doing? How are you balancing, what the toil that it's taking, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and then how do you balance that with still trying to do the job of documenting and providing for your work?
It's hard. I often love when freelance or people that aren't working for staff can tell me how they are involved in the movement. Like when Vanessa said, she put her camera down and put her fist up. Technically, ethically, I cannot do that. And so for me, it's like I see these emotions and I don't put my fist up, but maybe I cry a little while I'm taking pictures and people don't see that. But it's like, it's not that it's not affecting me, but in my realm of work, I can't be like, yes, you're right, I hear you, I have to be unbiased. Which is not really true because everyone has biases, but I have to kind of hinder them. It's been interesting. I've only had not one day off, but I worked 6-day weeks because just recently, as people know, Rayshard Brooks, African-American man, was killed in Atlanta in a Wendy's parking lot. So we have been on for like almost a month. It's been hard for me just kind of coming home and, COVID-19 is still a thing. So I do take all my clothes off when I get home. I do have to decompress and make sure I'm not contaminating anyone because I don't live alone. In addition to that, while I was working a protest in Atlanta, I was detained by officers doing my job as I had my badge on. And so for me, that was a whole different aspect of it because I wasn't listened to. And so being like, I was let go because I had 3 other reporters that work in Metro Atlanta in news kind of vouch for me. And so for me, that was a big deal because it was like, they saw my equipment, they saw my badge, and they still were like, we don't care. So it's hard for me as a Black staff female photojournalist to not be biased during this time, but also I understand the need, but at the same time, it is hard. But I enjoy the challenge sometimes. Sometimes I do need to decompress. Like I am taking a week off because I just need to not do anything. But it's hard. But I commend everyone that can go through it, work through it, and still feel like they can, participate because that's important at the end of the day. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's really impressive what you've been able to do. I'm so glad to hear you're taking a week off to kind of recenter yourself as well. John, I know that you were just recently down at the Capitol in Frankfurt yesterday, kind of documenting Breonna Taylor protest. how are you doing? What are you seeing and kind of experiencing? And then the rest of the group, feel free to chime in. Anything speaks to you.
Well, it's unfortunately, Alyssa is in a position where she can't express, her bias because of her staff position. But any of the other freelancers in the room, it's kind of a good fortune to not be in that spot, because then you can participate in the protests, you can post certain things on social media, and you can express that bias that I think we all kind of feel as Black folks very freely. So. But as far as like self-care goes, it's like therapy, awesome. Because we're dealing with kind of a lot of traumatic experiences out there. The flashbangs and the sound weapons and the tear gas, and angry people, and just being an angry person. Just being, I think to be a Black person in the United States is to just kind of have a low level form of trauma pretty much your entire life anyway. And so, now that it's kind of this boil has come to a head, and people are spilling out into the streets and expressing themselves, I think now is the perfect time to start like really dialing in, taking care of yourselves, leaning into your community, all your support systems, eating well, hydrating a lot. I mean, I know here in Louisville, or here in Kentucky, it's 95 degrees just about every day. And so, a lot of it has to do with like kind of accepting that help too. So I know that like, I'm a workaholic. I'm trying to get better at that. I know most of us here are probably workaholics too, and don't want to accept help whenever it's offered. But we're all doing really good work, and we're showing the world what this movement means. And so to be able to sustain and keep going means you have to take breaks. I just came back from a two-day vacation. I felt a little guilty about it at first, because I wanted to capture the movement and I wanted to be part of the movement. But it's like one of those things, if you got to live to fight another day, right?
I'm gonna chime in on that. Like for me, 5 years ago, after Freddie Gray, I tried to kill myself. I tried to commit suicide right after I got the time cover, because it was just too much. Being on the front lines, like you said, getting tear gas, pepper spray, going through the whole spiel. I was suicidal, and I beat it. So, fast forward, now it's like you have to take breaks, and like you said, you got to eat right, you got to hydrate, you got to do those things. And one thing, I used to feel just like how you felt, like if I missed a protest while I wasn't there, I felt obligated to be there. Missing and taking those breaks are very vital to the work that you do. So like I encourage everybody, because I used to feel the same way. I didn't want to take no breaks. When Freddie Gray died, we protested for 2 months straight, and to the point where police officers was harassing me. I've had police officers make me walk home and follow alongside of me. I've been, shackled to hospital beds after I tried to commit suicide, and I was able to come through that and continue to work. But this time around, I take a lot of breaks. So I do quick spurts. I will hit 6 protests in a week, but then I will completely disconnect from social media, from anyone. And I would just be like, yo, we ain't seeing you in 3 days. Or talk to you in 3 days. Look, because I have to sit with this. And anyone, and I don't know how long y'all been documenting, what I'm gonna tell you, what the hardest point, if you haven't gone through it yet, is when everything stops and you keep ticking, and then you keep moving and you want to keep fighting. But when media leaves, when the country calms down, when people attention starts to switch everywhere else and the protests stop, that's going to be your most difficult moment. Because right now we are a group, you're taking in all this energy, but when you have to sit with it and the protests are over, those are going to be some of your darkest moments. And right now I've been spending most of my time not so much documenting, but just coaching a lot of my peers, like my boys in Oakland, some of my boy Adrian, who's from Ferguson, like my boys down in DC, some of my homies in New York, because I've been through it. And when I went through it, it was just Baltimore and Ferguson. The only people that had stood up for Baltimore was Ferguson, while Obama called us thugs. But when the protests stopped and everything, all the activists here were dealing with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and it was really, really bad. But the best thing about it is when we go to these protests, you have to stay connected with your organizers and your activists. Those are going to be your lifelines at the end of the day. So I encourage, you know, as photographers, as we shoot and document these things, make sure we know who the activists, the organizers are, and stay connected, because these are the people that you're going to have, that you're going to need to console you once everything slows down.
So do you see it slowing down right now? I mean, I know you've been at this for a long time. I know it's a national, it's a worldwide movement. Do you see that?
Yeah, to be honest, eventually it will. You know, I think things like COVID is going to come back very strong in the winter. And the biggest thing is the real work. It has to slow down because the real work stops once the protesting stops. Because now you can connect with your organizers. You can set up these real panels that we really can have these conversations, and you can sit with your leaders. Protesting is to get you to the table. And I think but we just have to just realize that once it does slow down, is that as photographers, we got to continue to push the work. We got to make sure that we're not just at protests, but at these city hall meetings with our leaders, because once later down the line, you got to think about your work 10 to 15 years later, 20 years, 50 years later. Those table talks and those city halls and those meetings, it's important to know who was really there for the next generation to be inspired. So eventually, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, but it's going to have to, so the real work can really start.
Yeah, I'm out here in New York. I've been having some concerns with how a lot of the protests is going right now, because the last few protests that I've been going to, I'm not seeing the large crowds like I seen in the beginning. So that had me worried. And then it took for another incident to happen and another incident to happen. And then people just got recharged back up to come back out, be with the people, and being in that crowd too. Like, to answer your original question, like, it takes a toll on you to see that the ups, the downs, back and forth. You know, I have to constantly be reminded by friends and family that you have to chill. Like, you got to relax. Like, I'm always on go when it comes to this camera, because when I'm in my photography mind, that's what I'm thinking about, telling these stories, telling it accurately, and representing for all the Black and brown people that's out there. And I forget sometimes to eat. Like, and I come home and I feel all that, because now the adrenaline is gone, and I'm home, and I got to be reminded. I got to take it easy. I got 2 beautiful daughters that I got to remember, you know, that, yo, you're doing this for them, but you also need to be here with them to make sure that they get this, you know. So it's a lot. It does take a lot. So I definitely want to thank you, Devin, for that story, man. That was pretty good. Thank you, man.
I mean, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Devin. I'm an Army veteran, you know what I'm saying? So I'm used to like rocking and rolling.
Oh.
And so it hits you different, right? Because like in the Army, it ain't no stopping. You just got to keep going. And I had a dark moment like the other day when I came back from Florissant, and Florissant is like a northern suburb of St. Louis. And this was the first time I actually saw police shoot a civilian, right? And then they were like pepper spraying the women. And my only saving grace was the fact that I had on an Army veteran's hat. And they were just like, oh, you're a veteran, oh, okay, like, but when I got home, I was still on that like adrenaline. And then the next day, like I literally couldn't get out of bed. But I didn't think that it affected me that way. And so many people have been telling me, you know, to take care of yourself. And to be transparent, like I don't even really know how, right? Like I don't know what to do. Like, yes, I know meditation is important. You got to eat right and all these things. But like, and Devin, you've been through it. How do you really decompress? Because I feel like it's hard when you're so deeply tied to it, and you're seeing it in your community, and like you're seeing people that look like you be treated that way, and I don't know, like it's just different.
Yeah, like I always tell people, like they be like, how do you do it? Like I tell people all the time, I'm from Baltimore, I'm built for this. You know, I'm a person that, like, I used to hustle. I was in the streets. Like, I buried like 10 friends last year, all the gun violence. Like, I can't even remember, like, you know, so I've lost so many friends. So, you know, photography and art actually, and having a daughter actually made me actually feel for the first time.
Right.
And so when Freddie died, it was all these emotions I know, because I'm from the streets. So if you wasn't my family, I didn't care for you. It's not, I just like, I don't know you, so I don't care. You know, so when Freddie died, like when Mike Brown died, it's like, yo, that could have been me. Or when Trayvon died, you know, I wasn't there yet. But when Mike died, I just was like, yo, I be walking to the store all the time. Like, you know, and then so when Freddie died and I seen the video and I grew up the street, I didn't know Freddie had mutual friends. I had all these emotions because it easily could have been me. And it took me years to like be vulnerable about what I went through because I was hiding, you know, and I know a lot of us like to be strong and it's going to weigh on you. You gotta let it go. And, you know, and like, I got to a point where I didn't even want to be alive. And you don't want to get to that point where I got a daughter, you know, at the time she was 5, I didn't even want to be here because I was like, it's going to be a whole bunch of Freddie Grays. I don't want this burden, you know, and like people look at the work that we do, they love it. But we got to realize the work that we do, they love it. People say it's dope, but think about like, yo, my work is dope. It's not dope. I don't really want to do this work. I would love to take pictures of flowers and all this stuff, but these are your ancestors speaking to you, and we have an obligation to do this. But what I want to say is everybody decompresses different. I have lifelines where I can be vulnerable. You know, my mom, my grandmother, where I can, you know, it's hard being a black man where you always got to be tough, you know, and it's like, now I just, excuse my French, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to cry. I'm going to let it out. I'm going to just decompress, you know, but it's going to take time because you're going to spend probably the next couple of years unpacking this. A lot of us are, but just be willing to unpack it. You know, like you said, they say meditate. It don't work all the time. You know, I try to meditate and then I do hear rubber bullets. I do hear, you know, I hear this stuff in my head. So it's just like, the biggest thing is, I think with it being across the country now, we all have to lean on each other and help each other. You know, like when all this stuff popped off, I called my boy Adrian, lives in Chicago now, but he's from Ferguson. And you know what happened to the activists in Ferguson and what he's trying. He don't even protest or shoot, nothing, you know, and we lean on each other. So it's good to get those lifelines, just talk about it. It's going to take a couple years, definitely, but the good thing about it is we all are going through it. So it's like, you won't be alone in this, and the vibrations are high. So it's just like if you need someone to talk to, you can hit me because we've been through the same thing. So it's just big about unpacking it. It's going to take some time. And what really helped me is when I found other activists were going through the same thing I was going through. And we were able to talk about it, be vulnerable, and, you know, hug it out. You know, we grown men crying, hugging it out, you know, on stage in Baltimore. And that's what really helped me, all right, unpack a lot of stuff that I'm going through. So the biggest thing is like, we need to, as photographers, as activists, as our ancestors speak through us, is that we need to just collaborate and be there for one another beyond just liking each other's pictures and saying our pictures are dope. It's about, if you need someone to talk to, you need to be able to call on one of us. If you having one of those breakdowns or you feeling like you're not doing enough, because we all feel it.
Yeah, that's important. That's important because I have a group of friends that I go out and we go out and shoot together most of the time, so that if it's too much for one of us, the rest of us can help lift them up, you know, because it's a lot. There's been times we're out there and we're photographing protests, and I've had some of my friends say, man, I can't, I have to go. We go, that's it, time to go. Like, because there's no point in being there if you're not going, if you feel some type, if you feel that strong about it, that it's affecting you that strongly, that you're about to bring you on the verge of tears, we out, bro, because that's more important. I need you here. I don't need you to get lost to the secondary residual damage of these protests. You know what I mean? So let's just ride out. We out.
Before we move on, can I extend something to Alyssa? Like, how do you take breaks? If you have to go and do it, like, I can take a break on Tuesday or Friday as a freelancer, but how do you do it?
Well, I get 2 days off every week, but recently I've been, as far as self-care is concerned, like I started gardening, like, and it's like in the containers. So I have 2 like Lowe's Home Depot buckets, and I planted tomatoes and bell peppers. And just going outside, like if I have a kid, I worry about him because I go outside every day and I just look at the plant like, what's going on? How are you doing? You know, I've got some cherry tomatoes on the vines. For me, being able to see life slowly seeing things being created has helped me slow down, because that's like a routine for me. It's new. So it's like I wake up in the morning, I literally go outside, I water my tomatoes, I talk to my bell peppers, you know, and then I go about my day. But for me, like that's a small thing that I can do. But like on my days off, I try to disconnect. I've been recently, like I won't get on social media on Saturday. Like I'll try also not to get on it on Sunday, but you know, eventually I have to figure out what was going on in the world. But for me, that small break is a lot, honestly. Because when I did the first time, it was like, oh, I'm not attached to nothing. You know, I'm able to just freely be me. And if I want to just sit there for an hour and daydream, I can. Like having that ability to not be connected is really helpful for me. But gardening, honestly, watching things grow has been a lifesaver for me, because it slows me down. And just being out in nature, honestly, because I'm a Pisces, I think that affects it as well. But yeah.
That's beautiful. I love the description of community. We need community to challenge us and push us at times, but we also need people in our lives to tell us to sit back and rest, or to pick up gardening. And that's amazing. I want to move the conversation a little bit around, there's been a history of non-Black photographers documenting these movements, and they've used to subjugate, humanize them, and adding to the justification of violence towards Black people and communities. I would love to hear your all thoughts around describing the importance of celebrating, supporting, and then also hiring Black photographers to document and control the narrative of these stories. And then on top of that, I remember a conversation, Devin, you and I had a couple of years ago around deciding which images to publish or send to the editor versus the ones you decide not to send. And sometimes the ones you decide not to send are most important images. And thinking through that, you know, narrative and storytelling that you all do, you all can kind of speak onto that. Devin, maybe you can kick it off for us.
It's so for me, you know, I understand the importance of an internal voice and an external voice. And as being a Black photographer document in my community, I feel that if you look at, it's an amazing film called Through a Lens Darkly, and it talks about how photography has been playing a part in controlling the narrative and creating stigmas around Black people since the early 1800s. You know, people think photography is just a new medium, and it's not. It's called Through a Lens Darkly by Eric Thompson, based off a book by Deborah Willis. And, you know, and they show these images where they will hire free Black people to eat oversized watermelons and stuff like this, and send the images back to Britain and overseas, and create these stigmas and all these things around, you know, Black people. And it's an amazing film. I encourage everybody. You know, it was given to me from Ern Bryant at Smithsonian. But I do understand the importance of an internal and external voice at this time. But the issue is when the external voice, being white photographers, is too loud, and you're drowning out internal voices, and they're not allowing us to express our spaces. And it has always been like that. You know, white photographers document the entire world and get Pulitzer Prizes and get celebrated, while Black photographers for generations, their work ends up in the family album because they don't have a platform to actually get it to. And it's important now that you're looking at the social climate of this country, that editors and museums and all these platforms that we usually won't even get accepted to. It's like, for instance, me, I know amazing Black photographers that I've been working with, trying to get their work out, and the people, you know, like I turn down work, you know, like, oh, we want you to shoot this women march. Well, go get a woman. I'm not a woman, you know. So I understand the importance of people telling their own stories. That's why I start teaching other kids photography in my community, so they can tell their own stories, you know. So it's very vital. Then also with imagery, I understand, you know, what police will do with imagery. So I understand I've been harassed by police. So what I try to do is I have work that will never see the light of day, you know, because of how the imagery turned out, because I don't want to send anyone to jail. I don't want people getting harassed by police. So a certain way that I shoot things, and I try to, maneuver. And I know a lot of photographers, it's been a big thing about blurring faces out and doing all this stuff, and it's just about how do you shoot it. White photographers don't think about blurring anyone's face out. If you look at imagery from Africa, all the conflict there, but as we tell our story, it's funny that now, as Black people trying to document our own things, we're getting policed by outside voices telling us on how to shoot things. No, this is our story. You cannot tell us to blur faces or do this or do that and the third. But what I do encourage is, as photographers, Black photographers, to understand that police do scan these images and they will target certain people. Now, they saying blur protesters' faces out. I will post protesters all day, but when it comes to my activists and my organizers that I know just doing the work, that's different. I know not to take pictures of, if I take pictures of them, they tell me, you can put this out, or if they doing something crazy, I won't even show it to them, but it's a respect, it's a certain sense of community that comes with documenting these things. But for generations on generations, white people have come into our communities and spoken for us for years and have been speaking to the world to create all these false narratives around Black people since slavery, where they would strip down men and women and photographers as if, or put us in zoos. So it's like, it's our time to control these narratives. That's why I don't freelance really. I put my work on social media and Instagram, and then editors and then people hit me up after the fact, but it's important that we control the narrative. Both my time covers I put on social media with my own captions so people know the narratives, because what happens is a lot of times we try to work with New York Times and a lot of these bigger publications, but what happens is we will take a photo, but they will write an entire different narrative. So we have to think about how we put our work out. White photographers don't have to worry about that. They just take the pictures and move on to the next thing. With us, we have to be very important that people know how we explain our photos, that those narratives ring true for the next generation, because for years, our story has been shaped and molded and told to us, and it's not coming from the horse's mouth. So finally, I feel like now it's a time for these publications to really give all our Black artists platforms, allow us to speak our own truth. And if they don't give them no work. Like,
I agree, Devin. I think what's amazing and deeply troubling is when these white photographers are documenting Black stories, they're doing it through the white gaze, right? And Toni Morrison talks about that. And so when you're doing it through a white gaze, you sometimes dehumanize that community. And that is what's put on public stage. I know for some of my photographs, similar to you, nobody will ever see these photographs because I don't particularly care to put Black pain on public display that way, right? Because it almost seems like it's like fetish, it's something to be exploited. And so when I see white photographers, my experience has been that I've been in protests where white photographers ask me to move so they can get a shot, right? And look, I live in St. Louis now, but quite honestly, I'm a Miami chick. I'm not with all that. So I had to tell them this is not your time. This is not your time. This is not your space. If you want to take a shot, move around. You're gonna have to move, but I think that it's important to be conscious about the images that we put out and how do they perpetuate a certain stereotype, right? Or do they humanize us? And I think it's important to understand even the white photographer that shoots through the white gaze that ultimately leads to the dehumanization of Black people, you yourself must be dehumanized in order to dehumanize someone else. Right? So you have to seriously think about, I think, as a Black photographer, how do we want to control our stories? Because now is a perfect time that our stories begin to ultimately be placed in history books. And history books are always told from the position of the victor, not the victim. So imagine being in a position where, or we can reimagine what it looks like that our babies and our grandchildren and those that will come after them can have an authentic story and not just a snippet of what really happened. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because I'm always aware of where I'm putting my camera and why. I'm big on knowing your why when you're out there with anything you do with your camera. Always know your why. And the Black history has been whitewashed so many times already. I'm not giving them the opportunity to do it again. I had no say so in the past. I have a say so now, and I choose to not let that happen. I move white photographers out of the way when I'm out there. I don't care. I will move you. First time I'll ask nicely. The second time I'm not doing too much nice asking. So I will move them out of the way. And I've gotten to I guess online arguments with people, which I try not to do a lot, but I had to explain to this one non-Black photographer that just because you were hired to go photograph this don't mean you have to go do it. Your mouth work, say I don't feel comfortable, or I don't think that this is not the time for you to try to. I've seen people talking about prizes off of this. Non-Black photographers talking about winning prizes. Bro, this is bigger than a prize. This is bigger than all that. So, and I see that, I never feel bad about moving you out the way. I'm never going to photograph any Black people in any compromising positions that's going to ruin their life. But I'm also not going to keep feeding you this pain, this trauma of Black people that you could just continuously live off of and say, oh, all we did was like, Black people are beautiful people. We got way more than us than tears and screaming. You understand? Don't just go to that protest and showing that. And that's why I have a problem with when there's a lot of non-Black photographers out there. Even when I'm at these protests and I see a lot of women photographers, and because I know that a lot of these protests are led by Black women, I have no problem stepping aside. I have no problem stepping aside. Do you need my help? I'll put the camera down several times in this thing. You need me to help move somebody for you? Say less. Like, that's nothing.
I appreciate that.
Hey yo, I love it. Yo, this is what I tell all photographers, and when I go do like talks or whatever. Being a good photographer is not always about the pictures you take, it's about the pictures you don't take.
Real talk.
When you put that camera down, that's how you judge a good photographer, when they don't snap, when they put that camera down. Because sometimes you just gotta be in the moment sometimes.
Yeah.
So I always judge photographers of not just the pictures they take, but the pictures you don't take. I tell that to every Black photographer when I go do talks. It's okay to put that camera down and be in that moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Alyssa, would you be up for sharing the tension you feel having to work at the AJC and the editors and taking your images and working within a publication?
Well, it's different because I don't have the opportunity to license my own images. Most people that work in a staff position, you get the gear, you get the equipment, but you don't get the ability to license your own images. So when I had people right after the first day of protesters, I took a picture of this car burning, and there were so many people reaching out like, hey, can we license it? Can we use it? And I just had to keep saying, I can't. And so that hurts. You're making this work. But at the same time, I think that it's good that I'm in a staff position. I mean, there aren't a lot of Black women as staff photographers at any paper, right? And so our predecessors have coined the term and called us unicorns, because when you see us, you've been blessed to see one, because like we are not something that you see all the time. So I wear that as a badge of honor. Like, I am a unicorn. I am out here. And I know, like, when I go to sporting events or any other events, I am always the only one carrying the cameras on my shoulders. There may be other Black women there, but maybe they're assisting. So I know that there needs to be more space for us in this, because at the same time, when I go out to some of these communities and they see me come in, people of color are excited I am there, simply because I look like them. Like, they're just like, oh my gosh, I am so happy that it's you, because you look like me. And so just knowing as an editor that could take the ease off of some things when you're going into an environment where people may not trust, because at the end of the day, Black and brown people have a reason not to trust media. They have a reason not to think that we're on their side. So I'm not saying that you need to fill a diversity role so that you can have a Black person to send them to just shoot Black things. Like somebody was saying earlier, I want to shoot flowers. Yeah, we can shoot more than just Black and brown bodies, but it's also important to have us on staff and then also to listen to us. Let's not just fill a role to say, oh, look, we got a Black person in this role. No, listen to what we have to say. Let us help you shape the narrative so that our audience, which could be either, could be mostly white, could be a mix, can better understand a community rather than it being through a white gaze. But I just think it's really important to have people of color on your staff. I also wanted to say, as far as blurring faces is concerned, I'm more of, I won't take the picture because I can't blur your face. I remember being out there the first day and people were like, don't take pictures of their faces. And I was looking at people like, what do you mean? Like, you're in a public space, you're doing this public thing. But at the same time, I understood. So yes, I did choose to take a picture. Like, there's a picture I took of someone using a hammer to smash a police car window, but I don't show their face. And intentionally, that was for two reasons. One, to be honest, I was afraid. There was a lot of tension going on and I did not feel comfortable. And two, I understood that people are afraid of police coming back and looking for them. I've had so many people recently be like, wait, what is this for? And I understand that as a Black woman. I understand that seeing other, articles about how people maybe have mysteriously gone missing or maybe mysteriously went to jail or maybe mysteriously died. Like, I understand that. So I keep that in mind. But I also am doing my job the way ethically I know how to do it, but I also understand how people feel. And I think that's the difference between me and some other folks is like, I'm empathetic sometimes to a fault, but I think it helps me communicate with you, but also know how to do my job in the best way that I can. But yes,
yeah,
Black and brown.
I just want to touch on like what you were saying about people. There's people in, like, all the police officers that killed Freddie Gray got off, right? But it's people there was protesting that's still locked up from 5 years ago. It's a young man here that had was about to go to college. He was young. They was trying to put a fire out. He caught the fire hose and somebody took a picture of him. Now it's been 5 years later. He has to pay the city $1 million in damages. And is on, I think, probation for like 5 years. It's a man that got blamed for the CVS because he was there. He's doing 5 years. When he come home, he has to pay $100,000 in damages. And mind you, these are people from the hood, so ain't no way you're going to pay that back. And I just want to say I'm proud of you for knowing that, because a lot of people don't know. Like, the police got officers, but it's people that's still in jail in Baltimore right now for what happened 5 years ago. And they're still in jail because they were identified in pictures.
And for me, that's something new because that's not something that and like I said, I hear people now, even today, I took a picture at the state capitol because I'm covering the legislative session. And this young lady was just holding a sign asking people to vote for a law. And she was like, wait, what is this for? Because I don't want to feel like I'm going to be, the police are going to come find me. And I stopped myself and I said, And I think a lot of photographers don't think, let me listen to what this person has to say. It's just like, no, I'm doing my job. I'm taking this picture. I'm going to get it. I'm going to go. So I hear you. Yeah.
Well, real quick.
Yeah, I think that's important though, because something that I intentionally try to do is even after I take a picture, I try to find the person. Like in the midst of that and show them the picture and ask them like, hey, you cool with this? Like, and if they're cool with it, I keep it. And if they're not, then I just delete it. Or if I even ask them, can I keep the picture, but I just don't put it out, and they either tell me yes or no. So that's really interesting, Alyssa.
Well, I would love, this has been a very rich conversation. I want to extend it just a few more minutes and do a couple of lightning round questions just to get from you all real quick. First lightning round question, if we can just shoot around, is what do you use to shoot? What type of camera and equipment do you have when you're out at the protest? So John, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I usually shoot with my Nikon D850 and a 35 millimeter or a 90 millimeter lens.
I have two Canon 1DX Mark II staff and a 70-200, and I use a 16-35 or a 24-105.
I use my Sony A7.
I use my Fuji X100V and like two X Pros on 2 and 3 with two zoom lenses on there, so I can still capture stuff from a safe distance if needed.
Yeah, I shoot with Leica M240, and I usually have a 50. I have a 50 2.8, and then I have a 21 2.8.
And do you all find yourself switching between your phone and camera, or when you're out at the protest, are you merely shooting from the camera the entire time?
Camera the whole time.
Mostly the camera. The only time I pick my cell phone up is to like get video of the protest to show the amount of people that's there. I think that's important to show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've shot in protest with a phone. I had when I didn't have the police broke my camera, so all I had was my phone. So I shot like some protests off my phone before.
Wow.
And two more questions I want to kind of end this up with is one, I know for many of you, you shoot primarily in black and white in a lot of these images. Could you share a little bit of the thought process between publishing these images or shooting them in black and white?
I can speak on that. So one, I just like that aesthetic, right? I like that timeless look, but also I shoot in black and white because I intentionally seek to disrupt the composition hierarchy. Like I want you to see the blackness. I want that to be the center focus of the image. And I want you to focus on that. And so by focusing on that, my hope is that you at least become curious about who this person is. I think that sometimes with color, there are a lot of things that can like take your attention, but when it's black and white and you're shooting black and brown bodies, it makes the subject like the center of the entire thing, and that's why I choose to shoot in black and white.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that one. I shoot in black and white for these in particular because I feel like color can be very distracting from the actual composition. So if the color doesn't add to the story at all, then I just omit it completely and play with all the tonalities and all the gray and blacks.
I'm just colorblind, and I hate colors. I struggle with colors. I would come out the house. I came out the house one day, thought I had on all black. It was all navy blue. Like, so I shoot black and white similar to all you said. I think colors are distracting, and I'm really big on everything I shoot is basically black and white because I need people to feel the emotion. And sometimes I just think with the human brain, if a person got on a nice pink shirt, the way it's going to take away from what I'm trying to tell you, and you might digest it differently. So I shoot black and white primarily because I'm always trying to convey something. I'm big on emotions. You know, when I document something, I want you to feel what I feel, and I feel like sometimes color will, like you said, distract and take away from that. And then plus, I shoot for Under Armour too, and I hate dealing with colors. I hate color grading. I hate all of it. I just hate colors in general because people are like, oh, that's magenta. I don't see magenta. I can see the primary, the small crayon box, like the basic colors, but you start getting into violet, magenta, and orange, red, and all that stuff gives me a headache. I can't see it.
I mean, I shoot in both, but I primarily show black and white. But when I look at it, though, I look at it as like heart and soul. Like when I want to show love and bright stuff, I will have no problem shooting in color. But when I want you to feel that, I'm just going to go ahead and give you black and white. Not to say you can't get the same in color. It's just that's how I compartmentalize it for me in my head. It's heart and soul.
Yeah.
And I don't have a choice. I have to shoot in color. And I don't really post in black and white, but I think that shooting in color forces me to play around with light more and play around with how I can make the image and the colors in the image work with what you see. But I don't have the option, so color all the way.
I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's super helpful to kind of hear the freelance perspective, but then also what it's like in staff at an established. I mean, I know here at the Courier Journal, we were trying to put this event together. There's no Black female photographer here in Louisville, and that's a real challenge. And Alyssa, luckily, you know, WKU, former Courier Journal intern. I was so glad to get connected with you and have your perspective today on this chat.
Yeah, I will say real quick that although there are no Black women photographers at the Courier Journal, their staff is amazing and they were extremely helpful in my growth because I did intern there for a summer and they were so open to just helping me grow, helping me learn. So regardless, they're great. It's a great staff, great group of men over there.
That's awesome. Well, I'd love to end today with just any shout outs. Like, who should people be following besides you all? Because you all are amazing. What piece of advice would you leave for people who think they want to go out and shoot or participate in any way? Any lasting advice or information you want to leave with the folks listening?
Just be situationally aware. Be on your P's and Q's. Look out for yourself. Look out for others. If you're going out there to protest, make sure you're looking out for yourself and others. If you're going out there to photograph the protest, not every picture needs to be made. Just safety is very paramount.
Say this, like specifically as Black photographers, I think it's important to read, right? And read like work that is going to make you think. So like I would say people like James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, just a lot of these amazing writers of color that helps you put what's happening right now into context. And I think personally, it also helps you enhance your work because now you're looking at the entire situation and you're able to speak to your photographs in a very deep way that you can really help other people understand the things behind the scenes and what's happening that is propelling communities of color to respond in certain ways and to show up in the world in certain ways.
Wow. Yeah. I see you down there, Chris. For me, I mean, just continuing on with the fight and recognizing that we can't really go back to the way things were, at least not here in this city. But like moving forward, just everybody stay, like make sure that you have a good community, that you're in the community of the protesters and of the movement, and that you can go home and like I couldn't do any of this if it wasn't for support from my girlfriend, from my mother, from my white best friend, from my black best friend, from people out there that I see every day, that we all support each other. If you go out there too, like I do this often, like you go out with your camera and you don't feel like shooting, if you don't go out with your camera at all, just go out to the protest sites and just ask how folks are doing, what you can do to help. So a lot of people out there are having a hard time and they don't say anything about it. Just like a lot of us have a hard time, we don't say anything about it. So it's kind of like extend yourself out there and strike while the iron's hot, because we all really need it right now.
I would say when you're going out, have your why. If you're going out to photograph, like know why you are going out to photograph and keep that in mind when you're out there. Like people were saying earlier, there could be some pictures you don't need to take. So keep that in mind as you're out there working the scene. I love the idea of keeping in contact with the photographers that are out there. You know, there were some photographers out there, young women, and I was just like, yo, give me your phone number on the first day. And I was like, text me when you get home. Because you're young, this is getting a little crazy, and I want to make sure as a woman that I know you got home safe. Like I didn't know half of them, but I was just like, let me know when you got home. And I think that's important, one, to form a community, but also just letting people know you got their back, you know? And I also think if you are a non-Black or brown photographer and you're out there, especially kind of there's this one, like someone was saying, to you know, get that shot for prizes or whatever, awards or whatever. Like, again, knowing your why, but also if you see someone that is Black or brown, woman, man, you know, I mean, it's hard to say work with them because in my line of work, it is elbowing people out the way, and me being small, I'm always like trying my best not to get pushed over. But at the same time, like, I help them find a space. If it's a crowd, you know, maybe make a little space and be like, hey, can you get in here? And I think since I've been here for just 2 years, I've had that camaraderie with the people in Atlanta. So most of the men that have their cameras, you know, video, they always are like, hey, listen, you can get here. So I think just having that conversation, letting people know, like, working together is really important. But also just knowing your why. Why are you going out there to take pictures? Are you trying to, you know, help the stereotypes like people were talking about earlier? Are you just trying to tell a story? And what story are you trying to tell? I think keeping that in mind will help you, especially when it comes to like posting and just helping you understand different things, different aspects. So.
Yeah, I love, she said studying. Studying is very important. And I got into photography because I fell in love with the work of Gordon Parks. And it's an amazing lecture by James Baldwin. He's one of my favorite thinkers too. It's called The Struggle. And he talks about how the work is not even yours. As an artist, the work is not even yours. You're borrowing it. And when you're dead, what does the work say once you're gone? You know, as artists, you got to remember, he talks about how we are the light. Most people live in the dark all their life and they look down, but as artists, we make people lift their heads up. We are the light in the dark. And I want people to remember that when you're going out creating this work. And basically, if your heart is not in it and you don't believe in it, you shouldn't be out there, you know, because we're all out here transferring energies and vibrations and everything. And if you out with ill intent, you're affecting the movement. You're lowering our vibration and we really don't need that right now, because trust and believe, a lot of our vibes, and we come off as strong, but I know for a lot of people behind those closed doors, a lot of us are hurting. And you can see it in the work that we have presented. And just remember that, like James Baldwin said, we are the light. We bring that light to that darkness. We make people lift their heads up. We do something that he talked about, how the school can't do it, church can't give it to you, but only artists only can give you that certain divine spark that will change your life, and you only can get it from the artist. So respect the art, pay Black artists, hire Black artists.
Absolutely.
We need to eat to our work. We make this work, but we deserve to get, we got families, we got bills just like anybody else. Pay, support, and for everybody on this call, later down the line, make sure that, you know, as artists, that you get the bang for your work. You deserve, you're risking your life. And I sell my prints, and I will tell you, people come to me and some people be outraged about my price, but I know my worth, and I know what white photographers sell their work for. So best believe I can shoot some of these white photographers, and we can under the water. A lot of them can't deal with us or even shoot to our own capabilities. A lot of us are self-taught, and they get paid thousands of dollars. So if people want to buy prints from you, want to buy your art, make sure you get your bang for your buck, and always, you know, just keep your integrity in your work. You just make sure you get paid, man. Because at the end of the day, we need Black artists to make money so you can keep buying better equipment to make better stuff so you can really chase your dreams. So at the end of the day, make sure, look, my prints start at $2,000 and I'm keeping it $100, and I won't lower my price. People are like, well, that's kind of high. I know my worth, man. I'm not in the Smithsonian with 2 time codes for no reason. We getting published. It's Black. We need to start our own platforms, and to do that, we need money. We need funding. We need our own orgs. We need our own everything. So at the end of the day, make sure you get paid, and don't feel bad about it if just because we need you to get money, because we need Black platforms. So when you sell your work, get your money. Make sure you get your worth, because we need Black property. We need Black everything. So make sure you get paid. Get paid. Get paid. Get paid. That's something I learned from studying a lot of, you know, like you said, from learning a lot of my peers, my ancestors. We need, as Black artists, we need to make money. You know, bump that starving artist phase. We all go through it, but being a starving artist is okay, but it's not okay. Half the people scream starving artists ain't starving, they got trust funds. We don't have that luxury. So get to that money too, as Black artists. 100.
That's good.
Devin, that's so real.
Hey, I kind of keep it real all the time.
That is a great way to end this session with you all. Thanks so much for sharing that. Thanks for the challenges, the inspiration, the encouragement. Like, you all are beautiful and amazing. And I don't know what it's like in your city, but I know right now with this group, people are in love with you all and are so appreciative of everything that you've shared today. And John will be able to kind of bask in all that encouragement and love with the people here in Louisville. But I also wanted to extend the invitation that you all let John and I know when you're here in Louisville, and we'll help spread the love and show you around. But I'm so thankful for you all. Let us know how we can continue to support you. If you're not following them on Instagram, make sure to follow their work and to continue to support them and celebrate them. But most importantly, pay them well and hire them frequently. So again, everybody, I appreciate you all so much, but we'll see you all again next month, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Everybody get home safe, be safe, everything.
Bye, y'all. Peace.